Hello guys, and welcome to another profile tree video. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look at how to increase the WordPress limit. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So just before we get started on talking about the WordPress limit, what exactly is the WordPress limit itself? So the memory limit for WordPress is the maximum amount of RAM, which is random access memory, that WordPress can use while running on your web server. This limit is set in the PHP configuration, specifically in the php.ini, and that's the file or via runtime configuration settings. So by default, PHP sets a memory limit of 128 megabytes, and that's for the actual WordPress site itself. So however limiting this can be, it can vary depending on your hosting environment and your PHP configuration. So there are ways to, of course, configure all of this in order to make it faster or increase the amount of limit that you have. Some hosting providers may set lower or higher limits, and users with access to their server's PHP configuration can adjust it as needed. So increasing the memory limit is often necessary when running complex WordPress websites, and that could be not just for non-e-commerce but for e-commerce sites, especially for how big they are or how complex they can be, especially with the amount of web pages you're running, or when using resource-intensive themes and plugins. So that could be the themes that WordPress provide, whether it's free or whether it's paid for, or as well as that any of the third-party themes, and that could be through Envato Elements or any other third-party developers or providers. It just helps prevent memory-related errors and ensures that your site functions smoothly. So if you want to go ahead and check your WordPress site's current memory limit, you can do the following. First of all, log into your WordPress admin dashboard. Once you've done this, you'll be located on the dashboard of WordPress, and on the left side you'll have a selection of different areas. The one that we want to go for is Tools, and then you want to go ahead and select Site Health, so you'll just see it right there. Go ahead and click on Site Health. Now, of course, you can check the site health status through here, whether there's any critical issues or if there's any improvements that you should do, and that's all to do with the themes, or if there's anything missing, or any plugins to be updated. However, if you want to go to the info and select it and look for the server section, so that's just the info tab. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the server section just right here. And if we scroll down even more, we'll see the actual PHP limit. So here we have the time limit, and for this particular website, we have 256 M. So that's just the limit value, and that indicates the current memory limit for your actual WordPress site. So there are several different ways in order to increase memory limit, and if you follow a couple of the methods that we'll go through now, you should be able to have much better storage or memory. But do keep in mind that we may have to do a bit of configuration with PHP files, and of course there's plugins to look through. However, now that we've seen what our limit is, let's take a look at some of the ways to improve and increase the memory limit for WordPress. So now that we have a better understanding on the memory limit for WordPress, let's delve deeper into increasing that memory limit for WordPress and explore various different methods and considerations. Starting off with our first one, which is editing the php.ini. The php.ini file is a configuration file for PHP settings. To increase the memory limit, you can edit this file directly if you have access to your server. First, locate the php.ini file on your server. The location may vary depending on your hosting environment. Look for the memory_limit directive within the php.ini file. It typically appears as memory underscore limit equals 128M, or it could be 64M. Just depends on what your memory limit is. All you would need to do is change the value to your desired memory limit, and that could be 256M, and that stands for 256 megabytes. Once you've done this, go ahead and save the file. Now you have to keep in mind that not all hosting providers allow users to modify the php.ini file, so if you're unsure, make sure that you check with your hosting support. A second method is to edit the .ht access. So in some cases, you can increase the memory limit using the .ht access file on your server. Just depends how your server is configured to allow this. First, what you want to do is access your site's root directory via FTP or a file manager. Now, an FTP could be FileZilla. That's another one that you could use in order to make this work. So what you would want to do is add the following line to increase the memory limit, so it's on screen there. So it's php underscore value space memory underscore limit, and that's 256M, so 256 megabyte. And you want to make sure as well that if you are using an FTP client like FileZilla, make sure that you connect the FileZilla with your site's FTP account before continuing with the guide. Once you've done all this, go ahead and save the file. But it's good to note as well that this method may not work on all servers. So if you find yourself that it's not working, no problem at all. We do have another method, which is editing wp-config.php. So of course, it all just depends on the server configurations anyway. So as I said, moving on with the editing wp-config.php, WordPress allows you to define the memory limit in your wp-config.php file. So locate your wp-config.php file in the root directory of your WordPress installation. Now this is the following line that you need to add onto your wp-config.php, which is define brackets wp underscore memory underscore limit, comma 256M. And that could occur for anything. It's not necessarily going to be 256, of course. With our one, we have a 256 megabyte for our memory, so we're happy enough with ours. But of course, if it's 64, 128, it could be different numbers. Just ensure that it comes up to the higher value. Now, I would say that this method is often effective, and it doesn't even require any server level access. So those, I would say, are the three different methods in order to increase your overall limit or memory limit for WordPress. There are other ways as well, which is to contact hosting support and using plugins. So we'll go ahead and talk on these now. So if you're not comfortable making server level changes like we've discussed, or if your hosting provider restricts access to certain files, then it's advisable that you contact hosting support. Hosting support can often increase the memory limit for you or guide you through the actual process. Now, contacting hosting support are great for identifying server limits. So hosting providers often set specific memory limits to maintain server stability and performance, especially on shared hosting plans. So on your end, just check your hosting provider's documentation or support resources to find information on the allowed memory limits for your hosting plan. If not, discuss it with them to see if it can be changed. Number 2, opening a support ticket. If you need to increase the memory limit beyond what you achieve through the methods mentioned earlier, consider reaching out to your hosting support. So like we've said, it's best to just get in contact with your hosting support, as they can provide guidance for you, or they could do it for you as well, so especially if you're not comfortable. Log into your hosting account, navigate to the support or help section in that hosting, and look for options to open a support ticket or contact support via chat or email. Number 3 would be requesting a memory limit increase. So when contacting support, explain your specific requirements for increasing the memory limit. Mention the reasons for needing the increase, such as resource-intensive plugins or themes. Of course, these could play a big part as to why you don't have that full potential or maximized memory. Hosting support can often adjust the memory limit on their end if it's within the limits allowed by your hosting plan. Number 4 is server migration or upgrading plans. If your current hosting plan doesn't offer sufficient resources for your website's needs, hosting support may be suggested in order to upgrade to a higher tier plan, or what you could do is upgrade to a more robust hosting environment, or you could move to a more robust hosting environment. It's best to just consider these options if your site consistently experiences high memory usage. Number 5 would be to keep communication open. So maintain clear communication with your hosting provider support team throughout the entire process. They'll be able to guide you the best course of action based on your specific situation. So it's best to note that the effectiveness of these approaches may vary depending on your hosting provider's policies and the type of hosting plan you have. Hosting support teams are usually knowledgeable and can provide a tailored assistance to address memory limit issues and ensure optimal site performance. So now that we've got a better understanding on the contact hosting support, we'll take a look at some of the plugins that you could potentially use or to increase the overall memory usage. So what we'll do now is we'll take a look at some of the plugins that we can use in order to increase the memory limit on WordPress. Starting off with our first one, which is WP Memory Usage. While not being a plugin for directly increasing memory limits, WP Memory Usage is a diagnostic tool, so it helps you identify which plugins and themes are consuming the most memory on your site. So it's almost like a detector. It tells you which are the plugins that are a problem to the site, or what themes are a problem to the site. And then that means you can decide whether you want to optimize them, replace them for another plugin, or maybe if updating will work. But overall, I would say WP Memory Usage is a great diagnostic tool to use in order to identify which is problematic for your site. Now, how it works exactly is once you've installed and activate the plugin, you can go to Tools, then WP Memory Usage, and that's within your WordPress dashboard. It'll display a list of plugins and themes with memory usage statistics, and then you can decide whether you want to optimize them or replace resource-intensive plugins or themes. Now, I would say the only issue with WP Memory Usage is that it won't directly increase your memory limit, but it helps you at least optimize your site based on the memory usage data. And that's when you can start removing areas. The advantage is it is a useful tool to pinpoint memory-hungry components of your website, allowing you to take action and improve performance. So overall, I would say that WP Memory Usage, while it's not a plugin to directly increase memory limits, it's a great diagnostic tool to just identify everything that you need to remove from your site. Our next one there is increasing memory limit, and this is a plugin that claims to increase the PHP memory limit by modifying your .htaccess file. Its effectiveness may only depend on your server configuration and hosting provider policies. Now, the way that this one works is you can install it and activate the plugin like any other WordPress plugin. It then attempts to modify the .ht access file to increase the PHP memory limit. Now, in particular, I would say that this plugin is great for those who don't really want to touch the actual memory limit itself, like the 3 methods that we've explained earlier on. For someone who isn't too technical with working on the FTP side of things, especially with FileZilla, and of course it can get a little bit confusing, hence why there are plugins like Increase Memory Limit. I would say the advantage for this is that it does provide a straightforward way to test whether your hosting environment allows memory limit adjustments, and that's via using the plugin. However, the disadvantage for using the increase memory limit is that its effectiveness may vary. So again, it really just depends on your hosting configurations and your overall server, whether they can accept to make those changes or not. It's the hosting provider's policies that will hold you back. So another thing is that modifying a .ht access file can be risky if it's not done correctly. So it can cause crashes on your site. It can cause other issues to arise. So that is one of the only issues in terms of using this particular plugin. Now, there is our last one here, which is the memory usage display and the memory meter. Now, these are all fairly new plugins to be using in terms of checking your amount of memory. Now, what this does is this is a plugin that's designed to check and see how much you've got left and what you're currently using. So it's basically just a tool, again another diagnostic tool to use, and it just allocates the PHP processes on your server as well. It attempts to raise the issues with the PHP memory limit. So of course, if you only have a certain amount left, it'll try to flag that up using the memory usage display or server IP and memory usage display or the memory meter. Now, the advantage to this, again, it being a diagnostic tool, you're able to identify what issues you're having in your site and what ways you can find methods basically in order to either delete those plugins and again maybe change your theme. And for the disadvantage, I would say that its effectiveness, it is there, but it won't directly increase your memory limit, but it at least helps you optimize your site based on your memory usage data. The only really thing that is best to overall increase the limit of your website is to make sure that you're using the fastest WordPress themes, and that will overall impact your website greatly. You'll have faster speeds as well as not using up too much storage. jQueries can of course affect the sites massively, especially with the amount of storage that you would have to have. Just think about the amount of code that is being used in order to have that theme running. So overall, there are a lot of factors to consider in terms of the memory limit. But there you have it, guys. That is how to increase the memory limit on WordPress. I would say the better way in order to increase your memory limit is to either choose a fast theme to begin with, maybe limit the amount of plugins that you use as well, and if you're maybe stuck on that, then try out the 3 different methods that we've went through, which is to edit your php.ini, you can edit your .ht access, or .ht access, sorry, or you can also try to edit your wp-config.php. So there's several different ways in order to increase the memory limit, but as I say, the best method there would be to use the fastest theme to begin with, and as well as that, try to limit the amount of plugins that you need. Maybe look to see if there's any replacements or better plugins to use in the WordPress plugins area. Of course, there will be several advantages and disadvantages to using some of these plugins. But guys, that pretty much reaches the end of the video. Hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, let us know in the comment section below. We'd like to know what you think. But other than that, I'll see you guys for the next video. Thank you very much for watching.